Yes, Jake, I can hear you.
Thanks, Ann.
Mom, how do you get these on?
Sam, this is Chair Riley. I think we have enough people to start the meeting, but have you heard from anybody saying they're not able to come today?
No, I haven't heard from any of the commissioners.
Okay, let's give folks a little bit of time to log in, and we can start maybe at 3:32. That's okay with the rest of the committee. It's about 1 minute from now.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. We haven't started the meeting yet, so if you'll
Okay,
just,
I could not get my audio to work on my meeting, sorry.
no worries. This is Chair Riley, and we'll get started here in just a minute. We have, I think, all but one of us is here and ready to go. So, I am Chair Jake Riley, and I'm going to call the December 9th, 2021 meeting of the Zoning Committee of the St. Paul Planning Commission to order. For the record, the chair of the Planning Commission has previously determined that it is neither practical nor prudent for the Planning Commission as its committees to meet in person pursuant to Minnesota statutes section 13D.02. Considering the COVID-19 health pandemic, it is not feasible for any member of the zoning committee to be present at our regular location. Committee members attending this meeting are doing so by telephone or other electronic means. It is also not feasible for members of the public to attend the meeting at its regular location due to the health pandemic, and emergency arrangements have been made so that applicants and members of the public may also attend this meeting by telephone or other electronic means. Accordingly, no meeting is being held in City Hall Council chambers at 15 West Kellogg Boulevard at this time. Again, this public hearing is being conducted remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is also being recorded. Even though this hearing is being conducted remotely, the committee's public hearing rules and procedures still apply as if the committee were meeting in its usual place. These rules and procedures are as follows. The zoning committee's recommendations and findings must have a rational basis based upon the St. Paul zoning code and applicable state and federal laws. The zoning committee's actions today are recommendations. They are not final decisions. The committee's recommendations are forwarded to the Planning Commission for final action. The committee's recommendations will be considered by the full Planning Commission at its regular meeting held 1 week from tomorrow, Friday. The Planning Commission's meeting is open to the public, but it is not a public hearing. The decisions of the Planning Commission on conditional use permits, non-conforming use permits, site plans, variances, and other zoning permits are final decisions unless appealed to the City Council. The decisions of the Planning Commission on rezoning applications are only recommendations. By state law, the City Council, following a public hearing before it, makes the final decision on rezoning applications. The following rules and procedures govern today's public hearing of the Zoning Committee. The chair will call the secretary to take attendance by the committee. Committee members will need to respond verbally for the record. Following the roll call attendance, we will vote on the minutes of previous meetings. Committee members, during the meeting, please mute your microphone except when recognized by the chair to speak. Discussion is intended for committee members and staff only, except during public hearing items when the chair invites individuals to speak. Staff will be monitoring microphones and muting committee members and members of the public as needed. Use the chat function only to indicate that you have a question or comment. The chat function is part of the official meeting recording. Type Q or question into the chat feature when you have a question and or C or comment if you have a comment. The chair and staff will monitor the chat function so that the chair may recognize committee members and staff in an orderly way. After being recognized by the chair, committee members should state their name before speaking. This helps others in the meeting and assists with the official recording. When the chair calls up the committee to vote on agenda items, the secretary will be called to do a roll call. Committee members must respond verbally for the record and vote either yes or no. Cases will be called in the order they appear on the agenda, and the chair reserves the right to limit the length of testimony if deemed necessary. I'll ask the recording secretary to now conduct a roll call of the committee members that are present for this meeting. Each committee member should acknowledge their presence by saying here.
Commissioner DeJoy,
Here.
Commissioner Grill,
Here.
Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Commissioner Engel Morales, Commissioner Riley,
Here.
Commissioner Said,
Here.
Commissioner Tagioff.
Here.
6 in attendance.
Thank you, Ms. Langer. And just for a note, if you're a member of the public that would like to speak during a specific item's public hearing, you will be asked to identify yourself at the appropriate time. The public shall not utilize the chat for communicating public testimony, as it is not considered part of the public record. After I read the item number and title, staff will give an oral report on the item, and then I will open up the floor for committee members to ask questions of staff. After that, I will open the public hearing on the item. All testimony and questions will be addressed to the chair. You may speak in favor or in opposition, and you will be limited to no more than 2 minutes. People who exceed the time limit may have their microphones muted by staff. I will first ask for testimony from those in favor and those in opposition. You must provide your name and address for the public record. Please mute yourself during this meeting, except during your 2 minutes when you are specifically called upon to speak. You are allowed to speak only once, with the exception of the applicant, who will be allowed an opportunity to respond to the testimony and answer committee questions. So before we proceed to the first case, we need to approve the minutes from November 4th. Is there a motion from the committee?
This is Commissioner DeJoy. Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner DeJoy. Is there a second on the motion?
This is Commissioner Grill. I second the motion.
Thanks, Commissioner Grill. Any questions or discussion on this one? No. All right. Sam, will you take the roll call for the minutes, please?
Commissioner DeJoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagioff,
Yes.
Commissioner Said, Commissioner Said, and Chair Riley.
Yes.
5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Langer. All right, now we are on to our new business. First item on the agenda is item number 21-309-362, which is a rezoning of 83 Douglas Street between Harrison Avenue and Sturgis Street from R4 one-family residential to RT2 townhouse residential, which is in District Council area 9, the West 7th Fort Road Federation area, and in Ward 2. And Mr. Wade is here to make a presentation. Thanks, Mr. Wade.
Thank you, Chair Riley, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen here. And currently I'm lost in the exhilaration of my third cup of coffee today. So if I get speaking quickly or stumbling over my words, we can blame the local coffee shop. So today we're talking about the rezoning of 83 Douglas Street. The application is to rezone from R4 one family to RT2 townhouse. Quickly to talk about the context, the site context. North of this site, we have 1 to 4 family homes in zoning districts R4, RT1, and RT3. East, we have multifamily housing, parking lot directly east, and then Salvation Army, as well as a restaurant, which isn't written here. South, we have 1 to 4 family homes and small mixed residential commercial along 7th Street West with zoning districts RT1, R4, and B2. And west of here, we have predominantly 1 family homes with some scattered small multifamily in zoning districts R4, RT1, and RT2. Here are just some photos of the immediately surrounding land uses. North of this is a single family home. To the east is a parking lot that serves the restaurant, Gidio's, and the Salvation Army there. South of this parcel, sounds like we have there we go. We have a 2-unit building and a 4-unit building. And west of this parcel, we have a 2-unit building and the parking area of a single family home. Here's a zoning map. This was included in the packet. You see north of here R4, RT2, and RT1. East, we have B2, T1, and T2, and those are all districts that include business uses. West is RT1, RT2, and R4, and south is RT1, R4, and B2. A little bit of history about this site. From 1975 to 2011, the site was zoned RT2, which is the destination zone for this application. If you can see my cursor, it's here at the intersection, near the intersection of Douglas and Sturgis in the upper right area of the image. Most properties at the time were zoned RT2 or RM2, but you can see along 7th Street, as this was a business corridor and still is, there's a lot of B2 and B3 commercial only type zoning. And then judging from some piecemeal information from county and city data, looks like a single family home stood here until it was demolished in 1998, since which time the parcel has been vacant. In 2011, the District 9 residential zoning study was administered by staff, and many of these parcels were zoned to R4. Most of the 757 parcels studied were downzoned. A large goal of this was concern over conversion from single-family homes to duplexes and from single-family or two-family homes to triplexes, and their effect on the architecture, the historic architecture of the homes and the neighborhood. This was also in an effort to avoid increased residential density on some of the small lots and narrow streets, and then lots without alley access in this area. Those characteristics don't describe all of the lots that were rezoned as a part of this, but as with a typical city zoning study, rezoning study, we look at 40 acres or more per state law, and from staff recommendation and research through Planning Commission and City Council discussions, an entire area is affected. The public comment, the Fort Road Federation, which is the district council for this area, did not submit a letter regarding this rezoning. 8 emails in opposition have been received from 6 nearby residents and 1 restaurant owner, and then 2 additional emails in support were received after the deadline of noon yesterday. All of these public comment pieces were passed on to the zoning committee members, but there were a couple of points that deserve clarification. In one of the letters, it was asserted that the alleyway behind this property is not an alley. In checking with Public Works Traffic Engineering and Maps and Records, this is an alleyway. It's a public alley for use by all the properties. It is not improved, so it's not paved, but it is a public alleyway that any use of 83 Douglas, depending on site considerations, can use. Another clarification to come up is that a rezoning to RT2 would not be allowing any additional congregate living land uses. So this includes land uses like sober homes, supportive care facilities, adult care facilities, et cetera. These are all already allowed in the current R4 zoning district. One last one, and this is from a discussion with the applicant who can clarify later in today's meeting. This RT2 district was chosen by the applicant chiefly because it carries a minimum lot area of 2,000 square feet per unit, in addition to other dimensional lot characteristics. The applicant has a development idea in mind that can be addressed during their part of today's meeting. So getting on to our required findings. The application today is to rezone the property to RT2 to allow 4 small single-family homes on the lot. The current zoning, R4 one family, does not allow multiple residential buildings on a lot or multifamily residential uses. One note, a cluster development, which is a land use that's also recognized in our zoning code, is permitted with a conditional use permit. However, the R4 minimum lot area of 5,000 square feet would limit the zoning lot, which is 9,888 square feet, to fewer dwelling units than the applicant desires. The proposed zoning is consistent with the way this area has developed. The area is a mix of low-density residential uses with commercial to the east and south along West 7th Street. RT2 zoning is compatible with the surrounding low-density residential uses, that is 1, 2, 3, and 4 family residences. The proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The location is identified in the future land use map as urban neighborhood. They're defined as primarily residential. They contain a range of housing types. Single family homes and duplexes are most common, although multifamily housing predominates near arterial and collector streets. Some industrial uses like schools, religious institutions, cemeteries, etc., are scattered around. Limited neighborhood serving commercial may also be present. The uses permitted in RT2 are consistent with the urban neighborhood designation. Additionally, the site is approximately 515 feet from the 7th Avenue, Smith Avenue intersection, which in the 2040 comprehensive plan was designated as a neighborhood node. And those are targeted in the comprehensive plan for incrementally higher density mixed use development, depending on the context. Policies from the 2040 comprehensive plan support this. That is policy LU 34 and 35, which support medium density housing and multifamily housing near arterial and collector streets. And then some housing policies, 16, 18, 37, and 49, which support increased housing choice, fostering the preservation and production of deeply affordable rental housing and supportive housing and housing for people experiencing homelessness, encouraging the development of affordable housing, and considering amendments to the zoning code to permit smaller single-family homes and duplexes, especially to facilitate the creation of small home development types like pocket neighborhoods and cottage communities. Finding number 4, the proposed zoning is compatible with surrounding residential uses. The parcel is surrounded by 1 family and 2 family homes, as well as a 4-unit building with small multifamily buildings scattered through the neighborhood. Nearby, there are mixed residential commercial uses, some townhomes and other commercial uses, and the Salvation Army building, lie immediately to the east. R2 would provide for a transition from the low-density residential uses to the west to the mixed residential commercial uses to the east and south. Staff recommends approval for the rezoning of 83 Douglas Street from R4 to RT2. And I do see the applicant available for more information on the possible use, which has been described as housing for veterans at risk of homelessness, operated by the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. This is Chair Riley again. Does anybody on the committee have any questions for staff? No. Commissioner Syed.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. I don't know if you can answer, but those two letters from the public that were received after deadline, is that how that one work? I mean, we just keep it there, or I don't know if we receive it as a committee.
Chair and Commissioner, thank you for the question. Those have been sent on to you. One came in at 2 p.m. yesterday, and that was sent on, I think, pretty quickly afterwards. One of them came in at 1 o'clock today, and I believe the zoning secretary sent it on around 2:30 today. And so those were after the deadline, of course. They don't have to be technically submitted into public comment, but they were passed on for your information.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. This is Chair Riley again. And I'm actually not sure if that's accurate, Mr. Wade. I'm really sorry, but I think this is the public hearing, and so if it was received prior to the meeting, then I believe it can be considered part of the record. But I would defer to Mr. Warner for that. If he's here.
I'm here, Chair. I've not had a chance to see the letters, so I'm not sure they've been passed on.
They've all, but we received them all before the meeting started.
Yeah, it's a rezoning application. It's going to go on for another public hearing before the City Council. So if you accept them, that's
okay.
That's fine.
Thank you very much. All right, the applicant is here. Is that correct? All right, I hide there. You can go ahead if there's anything you'd like to add to the staff report. We'd appreciate that.
Hi, I am Charles Stevens. This is my wife, Laurel Gam, and I had a narrative that I sent to you all along with the application a while back, basically just summarizing things. I am in agreement completely with the study findings that Mr. Wade just went over. We are looking to do small residential, very affordable housing in this area. And we're struggling to figure out a way to do that, since we are residents of the neighborhood, and we are not real estate developers. And so when we found out about this program that's administered by the Minnesota Council for Veterans and jointly with a company called Yard Homes, it gave us the opportunity to really realistically look at doing this. And we are really looking forward to continuing to work with people in the neighborhood to really make something good that enhances the neighborhood happen there, while offering really affordable housing to people who need it and want it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stevens. If you could state your address for the record, that would be appreciated.
151 Goodrich Avenue in St. Paul.
Thank you.
And I don't know if could I invite somebody from MACV to just briefly talk about the program that we're talking, or do you want to do that later?
I think I would prefer to include that as part of the testimony portion. And so I'm going to offer the commission opportunity to ask the applicant any questions at this time. Mr. Tagioff. Commissioner
Yes,
Tagioff, sorry.
thank you, Chair. My question for the applicant is, I note from several of the letters submitted there's concerns raised about parking along West 7th Street. I wonder if you could clarify, do you plan to provide any on-site parking in this development? And if so, how would it be structured?
There is the opportunity to have off-street parking on the lot available through the alley that comes off of Harrison Street. We worked with an architect a little over a year ago to sort of dream about how we might do things, and we were able to come up with a parking area for 4 or more vehicles basically on the back, which is what is that direction, west side of the lot, which is most easily accessible from the alley. So yes, there would be an opportunity for off-street parking for at least one vehicle per unit on the lot.
Thank you. And to clarify, that is those are the 4 units in your sketch on page 6 of the staff report. It's sort of a grey area with what look like parking stalls drawn on it.
Correct. It's not very detailed, but sort of a blue-gray in the off to the west of the drawing. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mr. Wade.
Thank you, Chair. I did neglect to explain in the packet, there's a drawing submitted, the one that the applicant has just referred to. That was submitted to us some time ago. It does not necessarily represent what they would be wanting to go forward with, but it does represent a possible layout that can include parking, can include shelter on the lot, and was submitted by the applicant.
This is Chair Riley. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Just for clarification, that's on page 6 of the staff report as submitted online. Does that sound right to you?
That sounds right.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be pulling it up right now. Yes, thank you.
All right, any other commissioners or committee members have any questions for the applicant? All right. Seeing none, I will ask folks who are interested in speaking in favor of the application to raise their hands or otherwise use the chat function, or yes, raise their hands or otherwise unmute, and we'll try and keep track of you all. And so these are folks in favor of this application. And the first person I see is Lisa. Is it Yost? You can go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Right, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Yost. I live at 479 Eigelhart at 55103. And I'm a friend of Laurel and Charles's, and I think that what they're planning to do is a beautiful, unselfish, highly positive thing. And I'm pretty excited about it. I'm pleased to hear the positive response so far. No doubt some will have some concerns, and I'm sure that we can work through them. I think it's really positive. 4 more places for people who would otherwise be homeless, and then that will continue over time. I think it has the potential to do a lot of good for a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yost. I'm sorry about the dogs. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in support? This would be a good opportunity for Mr. Stevens' partners to speak if they so desire, as I see that at least one is potentially on the call.
I would ask that John Lovold from Minnesota Assistance Council could just briefly lay out the program.
And I saw Mr. Stobelstead's hand up too
Ja-
as well. If he wants to go, and then if you say John is the person from MACV.
Yes.
I'll defer to John.
Hey, my name is John Lovold. I'm Chief Operating Officer for the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans. We're located at 1000 University Avenue in St. Paul. And, one of the things I'd like to further clarify, and I certainly appreciate Lisa's vote in confidence of this project, but would like to clarify is that anybody who would be finding their way into one of these, wonderful homes would maybe have experienced homelessness prior to being there, but they would have worked their way through the MACV process before they would be placed into one of these homes. We would not be designating these homes as transitional homes. They would be permanent homes with a lease for those individuals, and they would essentially have graduated from some component of the MACV system, Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans. Our mission is ending veteran homelessness, and one of the largest components of that is connecting veterans to affordable housing. And that how we do that is we do provide transitional housing for veterans who were previously homeless or worked their way, into a situation where they became homeless or had to leave a doubled up situation, and they could stay in our transitional housing for up to 2 years as a definition of transitional housing. But I'm proud to say that our residents generally, when they have, the average is less than 9 months of residence in our transitional housing before we have connected them to the services that they need to be able to move on their own, whether that's with a voucher, a higher paying job, having exited any of their other previously issues. And we only make referrals out of our transitional housing after they've had good tenancy with us, as in they have been paying their bills, they have been following our rules to help them get to that place. So I think it's important for residents to know that the people who could be living in these homes could be living there for years, that they are not homeless, that they may have previously been homeless, but that's a chapter behind them as they move into this housing. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I guess I was prepared to share a video, but I realized this was going to be a little bit too fancy for this, and I don't want the technology to fail. But there was a story last night on WCCO, and the family, this woman and her 3 kids, came to be housed by MACV when everything was going on with the shelters being closed. Families have the hardest time in shelters in the first place. There's just not enough space for them. So we had her in a hotel where we were housing a number of different veterans, and then we connected her into one of our MACV homes, and now she's in her own duplex. And it's a success story, but it is an example of how somebody could come from a shelter into transitional housing and then into their own place, their own lease. They could and once they've been placed, they know that they can always reach back to MACV. Individuals like Stephen and Yard Homes know that if they've got a resident who is referred through MACV, that's probably one of the first calls they're going to make if there starts to become any type of an issue, and then we try to address those issues again if we have to. But that's how we build trust. And again, I said it before. I now wait and see if there's any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Lovell. And did you state your address? I might have missed though.
I did. It's 1000 University Avenue West, St. Paul,
Thank you very,
55104.
thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application?
I'll speak up. My name is Nicole Damer, and I am the CEO and founder of Yard Homes Minnesota. Address is 475 Old Highway 8 Northwest, New Brighton, Minnesota, 55112. I believe a question was raised about parking and issues with parking on that road. I think our experience with working with MACV, with many of the vets that are placed, that there typically isn't a car that's needed. So we feel that for a 4-unit property, that one parking spot should be sufficient. We select properties and work with individuals that have access to properties that are, on bus lines, very close to, community services such as grocery stores and pharmacies and whatnot. So this location is delightful in that it is off a main thoroughfare that has bus access, has access to jobs, has access to basic needs. And so we're very excited about this program. Again, to kind of reiterate what John has said, these aren't individuals that are coming directly out of homelessness or even shelters. They've been in some sort of transitionary housing, and now they're at the point where they're ready for independence. Creating a cluster environment of multiple veterans is another step in the support process for these individuals. And there's been some studies and some research done that 4 to 6 is the right number of veterans to put together, so as not to traumatize each other and trigger each other. And so this property is the right size. This type of unit is very different than some of the properties that have been offered up in the past. Our model with Yard Homes is to create small units, but have them be beautiful, have them be open, wide open, high ceilings, windows, so these individuals can have access right outdoors, a place where they can have animals, support service animals, dogs and cats, and really become part of the community. And that's our goal with these veterans, is that we develop them into long-term community support individuals. So.
Thank you, Ms. Damer. I appreciate it. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else? Favor. I'll ask one more time and then we'll move on to those who are opposed. Anyone else to speak in favor of this application? This is the 83 Douglas Street application. All right, seeing none, I will move on to those who are opposed to this application. And I just want to remind everybody to state their name and their address for the record when they speak. If there's anyone here to speak in opposition. Anyone in opposition? All right, third and final time, is there anyone else here to speak? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right, seeing none. Is there anything, sorry, seeing none. If there's any questions that the commissioners have for anyone who spoke, I'll give you the opportunity to ask those. All right, we will close the public hearing. And is there any discussion or any additional questions commissioners have, committee members have? I'll come back so you can all see me. Aye. Is there a motion anybody from the committee would like to make? Commissioner DeJoy.
Yes, I motion that we support the staff recommendation to approve the rezoning of the property at 83 Douglas Street from R4 one-family residential to RT2 townhome residential. I think it's a great project.
Thank you, Commissioner DeJoy. Commissioner Rangel Morales, are you raising your hand to second or to discuss?
To second, and just that I agree with Commissioner DeJoy that it sounds like a great project.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Commissioner Grill?
I'm putting my hand down.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, Commissioner Tagia.
Just to echo the other commissioners to say that I think when we receive letters in opposition, it behooves us to explain ourselves, and I also support this. I think it's a fantastic project. I think it'll provide much needed affordable and deeply affordable housing and supportive housing for folks who need it in our city. I think it puts a long-term vacant property to use, and its location is extremely suitable in terms of proximity to jobs and basic needs and things like that. So this just seems like an ideal project, and I'm proud to support it.
Thanks, Commissioner Tagia. All right, I think we're ready for Ms. Langer to take the roll call unless there's anyone else who'd like to share anything. All right, go ahead, Ms. Langer.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagia,
Yes.
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner DeJoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales,
Yes.
and Chair Riley.
Yes.
7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming today. Just a reminder that this still needs to go to the City Council and to the Planning Commission a week from tomorrow. Now we'll move on to our second case, which is the expansion of a non-conforming use restaurant at 79 Western, which is an expansion of a legal non-conforming restaurant into an adjacent building at 79 Northwestern Avenue, which is at the northwest corner with Holly Avenue in District Council 8, Ward 1, and Mr. Johnson is here to present. Go ahead, Tony.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Give me a second. I'll pull up PowerPoint. Perfect. All right, so the application that you have before you this afternoon is there a request for an expansion of a non-conforming restaurant at 79 Western Avenue. The subject property is located at the corner of Western Avenue North, which is classified as a collector street, and Holly Avenue. The subject property is zoned RM3, high density residential. There's RM2 zoning to the north and east of the subject property, and RT2 zoning to the south and west of the subject parcel. The subject property is a mixed-use building with a restaurant, health and sports club, and multifamily residential. To the north, we have multifamily residential and single-family residential. To the east, we have multifamily and two-family residential. To the south, we have single-family and two-family residential. And to the west, we have multifamily and two-family residential. So this site was originally constructed in 1920 as an apartment hotel. In 1922, when the first zoning code was enacted, the subject property was zoned C residence. And the C residence district was primarily a residential district. However, The district permitted hotels and allowed up to 25% of the lot area to be used for an accessory commercial use for that hotel. In 1975, when the modern zoning code was adopted, the subject property was zoned RM3 multifamily residential, making the commercial uses in the property legally non-conforming. The applicant is now proposing to internally expand an existing legally non-conforming restaurant in the building in order to establish the west dining room. And if you look over at the floor plans that were submitted by the applicant, you can see the west dining room here. If you can see my cursor circled in the floor plans that were included in your packet. So in order for the committee to recommend approval of this application, there are a number of findings that need to be met. The first finding is that in residential districts, the expansion or relocation will not result in an increase in the number of dwelling units. This finding is met. The expansion of the restaurant to create another dining room will not increase the number of dwelling units. The second finding that needs to be met is that for an expansion of a structure, the expansion will meet the yard, height, and percentage of lot coverage requirements of the district. This finding is also met. The proposed expansion of the non-conforming restaurant is internal to the subject structure and will not expand the footprint of the building. The third finding that needs to be met is that the appearance of the expansion or relocation will be compatible with the adjacent property and neighborhood. This finding is also met. There are no external alterations of the building proposed as a part of this application. The fourth finding that needs to be met is that off-street parking is provided for the expansion or relocation that meets the requirements of Article 63.200 for new uses. This finding is also met. There are no minimum parking requirements for the use, and no additional off-street parking is being proposed as a part of this application. The proposed parking for the use will not exceed the maximum amount of parking permitted for this use. The fifth finding that needs to be met is that rezoning the property would result in spot zoning or zoning inappropriate to the surrounding land use. This finding is also met. The subject property is zoned residential and is surrounded by residential zoning districts and land uses. Given the residential character of the surrounding land uses, rezoning a parcel to a district that would permit the expansion of the restaurant by right would result in a use classification that is inconsistent with the surrounding land uses and create an island of non-conforming use within a larger zone property, which would constitute spot zoning. The sixth finding that needs to be met is after the expansion or relocation, the use will not result in an increase in noise, vibration, glare, dust, or smoke, be detrimental to the existing character of development in the immediate neighborhood, or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. And staff found that this finding is also met. The internal expansion of the restaurant into an adjacent building will not alter the exterior of the structure or be detrimental to the existing character of development in the immediate area. Additionally, there are no significant increases in noise, vibrations, glare, dust, or smoke are anticipated as a result of the internal expansion of the restaurant to create an additional dining room. The expansion of the restaurant will not endanger public health, safety, or general welfare, provided a building permit is obtained to change the occupancy type of the portion of the building where this dining room is proposed. The seventh finding is that the use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. This finding is also met. The subject property is in a location that is designated by the 2040 comp plan as an urban neighborhood, and it's also proximate to the Selby and Western neighborhood node. Policy LU 36 of the 2040 comprehensive plan calls for promoting neighborhood serving commercial businesses within urban neighborhoods that are compatible with the existing character and scale of existing residential development. The internal expansion of this restaurant to create an additional dining room is consistent with this policy and will be compatible with the existing character and scale of development in the immediate area. The eighth and final finding is that a notarized petition from property owners within 100 feet is obtained. This finding is also met due to Executive Order 2020-29, which suspended certain requirements of suspended petition requirements for certain zoning applications. Before I move on to the recommendation, I would like to highlight testimony that I received after the staff report was drafted, and so it's not reflected in my staff report or in the recommended conditions. So a nearby neighbor submitted testimony that he frequently observes patrons of the restaurant incorrectly trying to access the restaurant via curb cut for structured, that would access the structured parking facility in the building. And according to his testimony, when the patrons realize that they're going down the wrong way, they back into Western, which he's observed has caused potential conflicts with pedestrians and also vehicular traffic in Western Avenue. So with my existing staff report, because we didn't receive this testimony before the staff report was drafted, I recommended 2 conditions of approval. The first condition is that final plans approved by the zoning administrator for this use shall be in substantial compliance with the plan submitted and approved as a part of this application. The second condition that staff is recommending in the initial staff report was that the applicant shall adhere to all applicable code requirements and obtain a certificate of occupancy for the restaurant dining room. If the committee wishes to entertain the request of the person that submitted the comment about the curb cut on Western being problematic, I prepared and am recommending that we amend finding 6 of the staff report. Sorry, this is in red, and add an additional text to the last sentence of finding 6. So the change would be after the sentence where it says the portion of the building where the dining room is proposed. So the change would be at this end. So the last sentence, if the committee wants to add a condition, should read, the expansion of the restaurant will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare, provided a building permit is obtained to change the occupancy type of the portion of the building where the dining room is proposed, and access to the structured parking facility in the building is reconfigured so that its existing curb cut off Western Avenue is closed in order to avoid vehicular and pedestrian conflicts. And then the amended staff recommendation, we would add a third condition, which staff is recommending should read, by June 30th, 2022, the applicant shall receive site plan approval and reconfigure access to the building's structured parking facility, closing the structured parking facility's Western Avenue curb cut and providing access to the structured parking facility through the parking lot. And so with that, I would be happy to take any questions that the committee has.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I see Commissioner Grill has a question.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks, Tony. I'm trying to formulate this question so it's not absolutely off the wall. When I was reading through the packet and then when I saw the comment, I was thinking, oh, this will get dealt with through sort of site plan review or through another process outside of the non-conforming use expansion. And I think I'm probably just getting it confused with the rezoning. I'm just not used to dealing with parking in conjunction with one of these. And with that, and I'm a little uncomfortable with it just without having, residents of the building or other people commenting on it to put a condition on. And so I'm curious, are there other avenues throughout the city where this could be enacted and not through like the zoning committee, but through a different process?
Sure. So Chair Riley, Commissioner Grill, this would be the opportunity to place that condition on the approval. To do the expansion of non-conforming use, the applicant would not have to go through site plan review. And they're currently not proposing any exterior changes as a part of this application.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Grill. And I see that Mr. Rupp is on the phone with us today. Perhaps he has something he'd like to add, since I'm guessing you haven't had a chance to talk to him about this yet, Tony.
I have not.
So, Mr. Rupp, would you like to add anything to the staff report, or respond to Commissioner Grill's concern?
Mr. Rupp, you may be on mute.
This is Chair Riley again. I think while he figures out the mute, maybe we could. Does anyone else on the committee have any similar questions or other questions for Mr. Johnson? Because I have a similar one in line with Commissioner Grill. So, Commissioner Tagioff, go ahead.
I have one just to understand. I've been to the Commodore before, and I think this room was already in use as what looked like kind of an event space or something like that. I'd be curious about that specifically as it relates to finding 6. Obviously, that requires us to find that after the expansion or relocation, the use will not result in an increase in noise, for example, and disruption. And so I'm kind of curious about the before and after, what this room was being used for and what it will be used for going forward.
Sure. Chair Riley, Commissioner Tagioff. So this room indeed was used for events in the past for the restaurant. And Peter Warner might wish to chime in. Do you want me to finish, Peter? Would you like to speak to this?
I'll just jump in now and say it's my understanding that the use, whether it was used or not, that DSI would take the position that the use was not legal or properly permitted, and that's as much as I'll comment.
So yeah, I don't know if you want me to add to that or not, Commissioner Tagioff. But this, as Mr. Warner was saying, the use as an event space for the restaurant was determined by the zoning administrator not to be a legal use of that space. And so in 2017, they were, ordered to cease operations, which is leading us here today in this application for the expansion of non-conforming use in order to legalize that space as a dining room.
Sure. So I suppose my question is, how logically, if you're going to go from a currently essentially vacant use into having far more patrons in a restaurant, potentially reusing it as an event space for perhaps celebrations, live music, that kind of stuff, how that jives with finding 6. For example, is that worded with sort of the idea that it's about external disruption to residents, and therefore because the room's in the building, it won't really change things? So I'm just trying to reconcile this, what looks like a reasonably large increase in capacity and potentially usage with the requirements in finding 6.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Chair Riley, Commissioner Tagioff. Yes, in my experience with expansions, we've looked at that finding as trying to mitigate external externalities from a proposed use. And in the staff report, I start the second sentence, but I can pull up as a significant increase in noise, dust, or glare. And so with that finding, we're not saying that there's going to be, no potential increases in noise or glare. But staff doesn't believe that the potential increase in noise, warrants denial of the application based off of that finding.
Okay, that really clears it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson and Commissioner Tagioff. Are there any other commissioners who have any questions for Mr. Johnson? Or perhaps Mr. Rupp has figured out his microphone. Seeing no other questions, I guess I'll hold my question, which is kind of along the lines of Commissioner Grill's, until after we hear any testimony, especially since we can't seem to get Mr. Rupp's audio working right now. So I'll take anyone interested in speaking in favor of this application. All right, it looks like I have Abigail Knoxheim speaking in favor. Sorry if I bungled that.
No, that was accurate. Thank you. My name's Abigail Knoxheim. I'm a owner at 111 Western Avenue, apartment 2S 55102. And I strongly support the expansion of the legal non-conforming restaurant at 79 North Western Avenue into the adjacent building. The proximity to establishments like the Commodore Bar and Restaurant is one of the main reasons that I chose to buy a home in this neighborhood. The loss of the Commodore Bar and Restaurant would be detrimental to the character of this neighborhood, and so I urge the zoning committee to approve this expansion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Jacob Powers. Would you like to speak in support of this application?
My name is Jacob Powers.
Mr. Powers, we're having a little difficulty hearing you. If you could speak more directly, perhaps into your microphone.
Hello, can you hear
Perfect.
me? Okay. So yes, my name is Jacob Powers. I'm also a homeowner at 111 Western Avenue North, 55102. And I'd like to just voice support for the rezoning of the restaurant. It has historical significance to the neighborhood and is important to the character. And these are both things that I do value as a homeowner. So I hope that the committee approves the rezoning. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else speak in favor of the application? I'll ask one more time. Anyone else to speak in favor of the application, non-conforming expansion of a non-conforming restaurant use at 79 Northwestern Avenue? All right, seeing none, I'll take those who are opposed to the application. Is anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right, one last time. Anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And does any commissioners have any questions for staff or care to make a motion? Discuss. Yes, Mr. Warner.
Thanks, Chair and Commissioners. I just wonder if Mr. Rupp is he here today? I don't see his name on the list of participants.
I believe he's the phone number, Mr. Warner.
Oh, okay.
And so I actually was looking at this is where my question was going to come in for Mr. Johnson. I was looking at the 60-day deadline for action, and wondering if perhaps our best option here is to delay the decision until the next zoning committee meeting, since that would allow you the opportunity to speak with Mr. Rupp, and think about different ways to address the driveway situation, because in part based on my previous experience with this property and others, this has come up a number of times, and it seems like it might be rational to deal with it. So
yeah, I would agree. It would be useful to hear from the applicant, and maybe staff can help them unmute. But if not, then I think it would be good to lay it over for a couple of reasons. That would give staff a chance to talk to the applicant about the proposed condition, and it would be useful to hear if he has anything to add to the staff report. But
Thank you,
that's I guess that's really all I have to say. Would be good to hear from him.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. I saw Commissioner Grill first and then Commissioner Syed. Go ahead, Commissioner Grill.
So I would agree sort of with, this is Commissioner Grill, with the conversation that we're having. It seems like with this particular property that this has come up, the driveway and some of the parking conditions. I don't feel comfortable adding a condition that the applicant hasn't had a chance to see, because there might be options like signage or other things that are less expensive that may also sort of help meet the need. I know there is a small sign there now, but just trying to think of a restaurant owner in the context of the time that we live in too. The idea of having them rework entire parking lot also seems like a lot when thinking about balancing interests. I'm also just uncomfortable not having heard from the applicant. So all of that said, I think I would make a motion to lay this over for 2 weeks, to allow staff and the applicant time to discuss the matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Grill. Commissioner Syed?
Thank you, Chair. I think Commissioner Gill well said that. So I will second with the motion if there. Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Syed. Mr. Warner, is your hand just still up?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Just want to make sure we're not missing any
Yeah.
important information from you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Hood.
Hi, thank you, Chair Riley. I would encourage you not to push this off for another week on the driveway issue. I believe that there are handicap parking spots there, so reconfiguring the driveway, which it appears to be, based on Google Street View, have been reconstructed recently. To redo that on the driveway, it just seems like we're going to delay this thing 2 weeks, and we're just going to kind of push it forward, because doing that just doesn't seem like a likely outcome. So I'd like to, my opinion is we should just move this forward and have City Council or whomever next take a look at that. So that is what how I will be voting.
Thank you, Commissioner Head. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Sorry, just a point of clarification. This application wouldn't go to City Council unless appealed. So if you moved it forward with the initial staff recommendation, then the full Planning Commission would have the final vote next Friday.
Commissioner Hood.
Yeah, Chair Riley, thank you for that, staff. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Okay, so I have a question then for Mr. Johnson. This is Chair Riley again. The full Planning Commission would be discussing this a week from tomorrow. If we were to move forward with your amended staff report and conditions, and maybe something that was a little more vague than suggesting that access be through the main parking lot. Do you think that you would have enough time to discuss with the applicant between now and then? Because I hear what Commissioner Hood is saying, but I also really would appreciate hearing more. And I don't know if Commissioner Hood, Mr. Johnson's response helps your thoughts, but that's kind of where I'm trying to figure out how to make sure that we both accommodate the applicant's sort of need to be informed, along with our timeline and the decision-making process.
Chair Riley, yes, that would give me time to discuss that condition with the applicant. Yeah, I'll end it there. I'd prefer we come back to committee. I think this is a better venue for discussing conditions, but if we want to move it forward and possibly amend it at the full commission, we can do that too, if the committee wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Well, we have a motion, a second, and anybody else have anything to add or to ask as far as the discussion is concerned? So I think I'll have Sam take the vote and we'll see what happens. The motion, to remind everybody, is to lay this over for 2 weeks in order to afford staff the time to talk to the applicant.
And our next zoning committee meeting is actually December 30th. So it's a push back. I think it's 3 weeks because of Christmas.
The holiday. Okay, got it. Thank you, Sam.
Commissioner Hood?
No.
Commissioner Said?
Yes.
Commissioner Tegia?
Yes.
Commissioner Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner DeJoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales?
Yes.
And Chair Riley?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
All right, so we will see this back on December 30th. And if Mr. Johnson, you could help Mr. Rupp figure out how to be able to be present with audio next time, that'd be really awesome. Otherwise, that completes our agenda for today, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Bye.
all.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.